Hi everyone, my name is Amber. Today we're going to be talking about The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. So this isn't going to be a kind of standard review because I think everyone and their mother has reviewed this book by now, but I do want to just talk about my thoughts on the book and also have kind of a spoilery discussion because I have read this book twice already and I haven't continued on with the series, so I've got no idea what's to come in the following books. So I just want to share maybe my thoughts and my feelings and maybe some theories on what I expect from the rest of the series, although please don't correct me if I am wrong, because if anyone spoils the following books in the series for me, I'm going to be so upset. So I guess I'm going to do a very quick summary of the book and then give you a very quick rundown of my non-spoiler thoughts, and then I'll get into the spoilery side of the video because that's going to be a lot more interesting, I think, because I have so much to say about it. Okay, where to start? In short, The Way of Kings mostly follows three characters. There's Kaladin, there's Shalin or Shallan, I don't really know how to pronounce the names, and there's Dalinar. Kaladin's chapters are all very Spartacus in that he is now a slave and he's trying to look out for the people in his bridge crew. Shalin is studying under someone called Yasna, although maybe not for good reasons. And then Dalinar is a high prince whose brother's death sparked the war that he is now fighting in. There are many more characters because this book is 1,000 pages long, so obviously there's a bigger cast. There's Syl, who I love, Yasna, who I've already mentioned, Szeth and Adolin, but the first trio are the most important ones. So we're following all of these people. Throughout the book there is a war going on. Like I said, Dalinar is fighting in this war and his people are trying to get these things called shard plates, and these give you super powers basically. Kaladin also fought in this war and you learn bits about his backstory. Shalin, you don't really learn much about her backstory because it's kind of mysterious at the start of the book, but I'm hoping we will find out more about her in the sequel. So that's a really brief summary of the book. I don't really know how much the blurb actually covers, so I don't want to go into too much detail. It's 1,000 pages, so I'm never going to be able to summarize it all here. So if you do want a better summary, maybe check out someone else's video or go and read the blurb on a website somewhere. Okay, so onto my review, the brief non-spoilery version. So like I said, have read this book twice now. The first time was about 7 years ago, I think. And then I also reread it over the summer in preparation, or what I thought was going to be in preparation for Rhythm of War. And what was really interesting to me is that I felt exactly the same about it both times. So what does this tell me? One thing it tells me is that it's a very good book. If it stands up after 7 years of not reading it and not really remembering much of it, and my reading tastes have also changed, then it must be a good book. 2, it tells me that Brandon Sanderson is consistent. I also mentioned that this book is over 1,000 pages long. It's very, very chunky. It's split into 2 here in the UK because it's so big, so we get parts 1 and 2 of all of the books. But despite the size of it, I didn't find that it dragged at all, really. I did think that the first half of the book was a lot of build-up, but I think that that's to be expected because it's the first book in a 10-book epic fantasy series, so it needs to do a lot of world building and initial character introductions. So there was a lot to learn, and I do think it was handled quite well in that Brandon Sanderson didn't really bore me at any point apart from in Shalin's chapters. I think she has a long way to go. I think that this book was probably only a minor introduction of her character because, like I said, her past was kind of mysterious and we didn't learn much about it. We just knew some of her motives and we saw her interacting with Yasna, but we didn't really learn much about her kind of as a more honest or truthful look at her. So I think she does have a long way to go, and I think we'll probably learn more about her in the sequels. So I didn't love her chapters. I found them quite boring. I didn't find her that funny either, but to be honest, I don't think she's meant to be funny. Going from what some other reviews have said, she does get a lot better in future books, and this humour is kind of more of a mask because she's gone through some past trauma, which does make sense. But as an introduction, and if I were to have been reading this for the first time along with everyone else rather than having already read some reviews and discussed it already, I think I would have been very put off by her character, especially because she has so many chapters and it's just, they're not that interesting compared to the other things that are going on. So like I said, Kaladin and Dalinar are fighting in the war, and that's a lot more interesting than what was going on with Shalin. I think things will merge and come together a bit more, and they kind of started to at the end of the book, but Dalinar's and Kaladin's chapters were just so much more interesting. So every time we switched back to a Shalin chapter, I was kind of rolling my eyes because I just didn't really care that much. So I gave book 1 part 1 4 stars, and I gave book 1 part 2 5 stars because I loved the ending of this book. Brandon Sanderson's books always get better towards the end, so it makes sense that the second half of the book was so much more interesting to me, and it was a lot more emotional because I had just spent 900 pages getting used to these characters and being introduced to them, and learning more about them and their histories, and then it all just comes together and kind of explodes, and it made me cry. So yeah, overall I gave the book 4.5 stars, and now I want to get onto my spoilery discussion because I have some specific things I want to talk about. So first of all, I think I've already covered what I want to with Shalyn. I didn't really enjoy her mysterious past and her motivations. I can't remember if the first time I read this I knew that she had killed her dad, so I can't remember how obvious it was, but I did find this time rereading the way that she was being so vague about it and so like dark and gloomy, I was just kind of rolling my eyes a bit because I already knew that I wasn't all that interested in her character, if that makes sense. So I think if I were to reread this book again, I would probably feel the same way because I know what's going on with her now at this point in time, and I can't be bothered to kind of drudge through all of her chapters again, just because I don't find her that interesting. But I do think and also hope that she will get more interesting in the sequels now that her kind of secret is out. We know a lot more about her and this kind of introductory phase is kind of done with. I really hope that Brandon Sanderson is going to develop her more, and I'm going to find her more interesting, especially because I think she has her book, which I think might be Words of Radiance, if I'm not wrong. And I think the only thing that's keeping me going and keeping me really interested, knowing that she gets her own book, is that I do think that her character development will get better. So moving on to Kaladin's plot, because I found his the most interesting. I think this is described as Kaladin's book, and I think everyone's going to feel the same way in that he's the most interesting character in this one. I don't know about the rest of the series. I don't know who's going to kind of get better and start to shine, but Kaladin is definitely the most interesting in this book. You get his entire backstory with his brother. I did find that during this reread, now that I'm older reading it, I did get quite emotional about his parents, because they obviously lost both of their sons at the same time. And I think that is because I'm older now, whereas when I last read it, I was in my early 20s. I just really felt I could connect with them a bit more and understand them a bit more, and it broke my heart a little bit. So Kaladin's plot did feel very Spartacus-like, mostly like the TV show, but also I guess like the movie and the actual historical events. And if you know me at all, you'll know that I am obsessed with the Spartacus TV show, and that the slave rebellion plot, or the slavery to freedom plot, is one of my favorites, if not my top favorite. I think it might be my actual favorite kind of trope or storyline or plot structure. So I just love stories about rebellions and people rising up, and I just love this. So for this reason, Kaladin's chapters were easily my favorite. Even if he had been a bit of a more boring character like Shalyn, I think given his plot and his history, I would have found him the most interesting anyway. I loved his relationships with everyone as well, getting to know him alongside his bridge crew and how well, first of all, he met Syl, didn't he? So seeing him interact with Syl, firstly starting out as kind of like unsure about her, and then gradually she became more and more of her own, I don't want to say person because she's not really a person, but she became more and more like sure of herself, and she became more and more helpful, and then Kaladin started to lean on her more and more, and I just loved that relationship so much, and I hope it continues in the other books, especially because I really want to learn more about Syl as well, and I don't really know how much we're going to find out in Words of Radiance, but I do hope it's a lot because I find her very, very intriguing, especially when she's paired up with Kaladin. And then his relationship with Bridgefour was just amazing. It was so much like Spartacus. So he started off obviously with people not really liking him in Bridgefour, and they thought he was a bit of a weirdo. He realized that he could make a difference and he could protect these people. So when he ended up running at the front of the bridge because he realized that he could protect people that way, it just got to me. It made me so emotional. I think the actual quote, I've written it down, said, "It's my privilege to run from the front." And honestly, that just broke me. I cried. And then it was just really lovely to carry on seeing the bridgemen slowly come to accept him, even the ones who really hated him in the beginning. By the end, when Bridgefour have to go and protect Dalinar, they're all by his side and they all want to fight with him, even if some of them aren't able to. And it just made me so emotional, and I wasn't expecting to get as emotional this time around because I haven't watched the Spartacus TV show in ages. I couldn't remember if I got emotional the first time, so this was kind of a shock. Like, there were actual tears running down my face, and I wasn't really expecting that for some reason. I think the slow build of the book had definitely gotten to me, and I didn't realise that these emotions were creeping up on me and that I had gotten so attached to the bridge crew. I think the moment that got to me the most was definitely when Kaladin realised that he had to turn around and go and help Dalinar because he was about to die, or all of his men were about to die, and then he was about to go off, and then the other men just would not leave him. It was just too much for me, and I'm really hoping, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm really hoping that in the sequels they, at least some of them, stick together and we carry on getting those relationships, because I think it's really important to have like a solid foundation of relationship. I don't want, now that Dalinar has fought them using his sword. I don't want the bridge crew to kind of split up. I want them to carry on being by Kaladin's side, and it worries me that they might not be, because that's one of my favourite things about the Way of Kings, and if that's not in the next books and the sequels, I don't think anything else can match up, because even if Kaladin finds new relationships that are kind of the same, it's going to be quite difficult to have that same solid foundation, because he's not going to have the same history with the other people. So I think it's going to be quite hard to pull off anything else other than bringing Bridge 4 or some of Bridge 4 along with him. Although I'm sure like Brandon Sanderson can do a good job with introducing new characters, but what I'm saying is I'm quite attached to Bridge 4 and I don't want them to go away already. So obviously the other third major point of view is Dalinar, and I did really enjoy his chapters, even if I was confused like the entire time. Because I haven't read the other books, which I'm sure expand upon his issues, I was confused throughout his chapters and I had no idea what was going on. I have theories obviously, but I don't know. I do know though, because I know the way that Brandon Sanderson writes, I've read his other books, I know that there will be lots of foreshadowing in his chapters. So I think what I'm most looking forward to is catching up with the series and then going back to read this one to see exactly what foreshadowing there is with Dalinar's stuff, because I think a lot of that is lost on me having not read the other books yet. But either way, I do still really enjoy Dalinar's chapters. I find them really interesting because I am very, very intrigued. I think Dalinar isn't normally the kind of character who would speak to me. I normally find the kind of rule following characters kind of boring, and I tend to like the snarkier and witty ones. But I just loved how honourable Dalinar always tried to be, even though he had people pressuring him and actually like literally betraying him. He still tried his best. I don't know, I just love that, and I love that he freed Bridge 4. Like if there was anything that was going to make me love the character, it would have been that. I can't remember if I loved Dalinar this much the first time that I read it. I think I did. I think I had the same like similar feelings last time I read it. So I found Shallan really boring, Dalinar was pretty cool, and then Kaladin was like the best. But I can't remember if I liked Dalinar this much. I think it might be partly because I'm older now and I'm starting to appreciate his type of character more, whereas when I was younger I liked the action-packed scenes and the snarky witty characters and the younger ones as well. But I don't know, Dalinar just speaks to me a lot more now that I'm older, I think. So I don't really know why I liked his character so much this time other than being older, but I think it's partly because I do know there is a lot of foreshadowing there, and his character is going to be explored a lot in the sequels because there's just so much it seems to explore and find out about him. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I think what I really loved about this book was just how well thought out it was. For one thing, it's very well structured, and for a 1,000-page book it does read really, really well. And I can't say the same for other massive fantasy books that I've read. Like the Game of Thrones books do not read this well at all. Wheel of Time was just kind of boring most of the way through, but this one, partly because I know that I like Brandon Sanderson's writing style and so I was able to stick with it, but also I think the characters really made a difference here, because being able to connect to the characters made me want to read 1,000 pages of them. And honestly, I'm not even like intimidated by the next books in the series. I do think that I need to be in the right headspace for them, and I need to carve out some time for them because they are so big. I don't really feel as though they're going to be difficult reads or they're ones that I have to really work on other than giving my time. And I think this book was just such a good setup. Even though I haven't read the following books, I think it's such a good setup for the rest of the series. It's got fantastic world building, it introduces the characters really well, and it focuses on the most interesting character first so that you get little bits and pieces of the other characters for foreshadowing reasons, and then you just know that you're going to follow those later on. So I think Brandon Sanderson made a really smart choice following Kaladin as much as he did in this book. So I do have utter faith that this was a good setup and the rest of the series is going to be amazing. I can't wait to read them, and now that I'm talking about it now, I do actually want to start Words of Radiance. I just need to carve out some time in my TBR because I've got so much going on. I have no idea what's going to happen in the future books. I think I did start Words of Radiance once a few years ago and I just didn't carry on with it, so I probably read about half of the first book, so like a quarter of the book, and I can't remember anything that happens. So I'm really, really looking forward to reading it, and I'm so glad I haven't been spoiled. Like the fandom has kept so quiet on Twitter about any major spoilers, so I'm very grateful about that, because if I had been spoiled for the next 3,000 pages, would I have wanted to carry on reading the books? Probably not. As for what I want from the next books, please don't spoil me if you have read them, but I think I want more Yasna for one thing, because I think she's a very, very interesting character, and I want to see more of Shallan as well. Even though I do find her boring in this book, I do think that, like I said, she's got potential, so I want to see more of her in the next books so that I get to know her more, and therefore I will like her, because I do really want to like the character. I just find her quite dull at the moment. I definitely want to see more Bridge 4. I've already covered that actually quite at length, but I don't want them to break up or anything. I want to carry on seeing those relationships grow and build, and I want to see them all together. And it's probably not going to be like really cheerful, but I do think it's going to be emotional and probably heartwarming as well at points. So I'm looking forward to that. And something I haven't actually mentioned yet is I really want to see more of Zeth. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I found him very, very interesting. So you only obviously see bits of him in this one, but I think he gets the first chapter, and by then I was already really intrigued by him. So I do have a feeling we'll learn more about him in future books, and I'm worried and also quite intrigued by the fact that it could be another Dara situation from City of Brass, because we do know that someone is clearly commanding Zeth's Oathstone, is making him do all of these things that he doesn't want to do, but I'm just intrigued as to see how he got into that situation in the first place, how the Oathstones actually work, and also how the hell he's going to get out of it, if he does get out of it. I just find him such an interesting character, and I guess it's kind of like the slavery freedom thing again, in that he's definitely a slave to someone right now, but maybe we're going to see him rebel, rise up, turn into a good guy, and then help the others out. I don't know, I think he's got a lot of potential, even though he only had a few chapters in this book, and I'm really hoping he's going to turn into a really good character. So overall, I love this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. I do have other things to discuss probably, but I probably need someone else to have that conversation with. So if anyone wants to join video where we talk about the Way of Kings specifically, then I would definitely be up for that, because I think it's just such a good one to dive into, especially if you have read the future books in the series, which I haven't yet, but I will do soon, I hope. I'm really, really keen now to carry on with this series. I hope that it holds up, and by the sounds of it, it does. Each book keeps getting better and better, so I'm just really excited. I'm really excited to be able to talk about it. I'm probably going to do reviews for each of the books, including the novellas or the like short stories, whatever they are, except I think those are actual like normal novel size. It might take me a while to get around to them, but I definitely do want to do more Stormlight Archive Cosmere discussions on my booktube channel, because it's a universe that I really enjoy, and I have been reading the books since the Final Empire, so I do have a lot of things that I think I could talk about and I'm interested in talking about. I just need to try to get back into the series and not be so bogged down with my other TBR. Let me know your thoughts on The Way of Kings in the comments below. Please don't spoil anything for future books, but you can spoil The Way of Kings if you want or need to. I really don't mind. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm currently uploading every other day this month, so subscribe if you enjoyed this one, leave a like as well, and I'll speak to you all in the next video. Bye!